Good afternoon and welcome to Stock Market Today, sponsored by Interactive Brokers. It is Monday, October 14th, and we are live from the Investors Business Daily Studios in Los Angeles. On today's show, we're going to be talking about Lululemon attempting a breakout and also InMode that is breaking a downtrend. And finally, we'll get into some of the bank stocks, specifically JPMorgan that has earnings due coming up. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at the major market indexes. It's Justin Nielsen along with Ed Carson, and it was kind of a ho-hum day, pretty flat action. Looks like the S&P 500 closed down about 0.14%. The composite down 0.1%, and the Dow Jones Industrials down about 0.1% as well. So it was kind of like watching paint dry today.
Yeah, that's more like it, because ho-hum sounds too exciting.
Okay, my mistake.
It was really a dull day. I mean, really the major averages never really moved at all. I mean, I guess what you could say is that the indexes held their gains from last week.
That's the positive.
The NASDAQ and the other major averages moved above their 50-day lines at the end of late last week, so that's nice. There's no real negative action. I mean, the investors are continuing to digest the sort of the trade truce, partial trade deal, however you want to call it, and a slew of earnings start coming in the next few days, including tomorrow morning. So I can understand why investors said, we're just certainly going to take a break.
Right, and really, you could have expected even worse action based on the close on Friday. That was so far off its highs. A lot of times with those types of reversals, you would almost expect it to fill in the gap a little bit. But the fact that we held, really, the majority of those gains that we got from Friday's gap is pretty constructive. But still, it just didn't really make for much action today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and turn to some of the stocks that we were kind of looking at. Lululemon. Now, this is one that's been on leaderboard for a while now. It's been just kind of going along, basing. Where's Lululemon at now?
Well, it's sort of interesting. Lululemon recaptured an old buy point late last week on fairly strong volume over on Thursday and Friday. But as of Friday, it had a new base, and it briefly cleared that buy point today, but backed off. The volume wasn't really ever there. And I mean, it rose today, so it's nothing. It wasn't that dispiriting. It actually outperformed the major averages, and we've seen that a lot actually with some of the recent breakouts. They come on light volume, or the breakout attempts, they come up and then they back off either just above or just below the buy point.
Right.
I mean, but that's sort of what we've been seeing the last couple of days.
Yeah, so volume looks like it came in about average on this one. It did get above that 204.54 buy point, but then kind of came back down. And as you mentioned, this is one that it did get back above the buy point from a month ago, and just finally kind of carved out that flat base.
But I would say, like a stair stepper, our boss, Chris Kessel, often likes to criticize those kind of stocks. But there's one thing, a stair stepper when the market's really rip-roaring, but the relative strength line, if you look at that sort of like that blue line down there, that's still been increasing. It isn't rip-roaring as much as it was previously, but it's still doing pretty well. It's sort of stair-stepping when you're like fighting against the current, you're managing to climb or climbing up a mountain kind of thing. Yeah. There's a lot of things against it, so if you can make any progress, stair-stepper is sort of like almost like an ascending base in that kind of situation. It's not an ascending base, but has similar qualities of continuing to rally despite choppy or weak markets.
Right. It almost shows that you're resilient and resisting that downtrend. And so a lot of times those stocks are the ones that can make the big gains when that market pressure finally does let up. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of the recent IPOs. This is InMode. Now, this is an Israeli company, and they are into the body contouring, the aesthetics, the medical equipment. Now, this had a very strong day today and broke above a downtrend. What was it that you were kind of looking at for this one?
Well, I mean, it's hard to show often on a small chart, but the stock had been rallying the last few weeks, but really hadn't moved, that aggressively, in terms of volume, and it was small gains. And today it really popped higher, breaking that downtrend. It doesn't really have I suppose an aggressive investor could jump on that.
Actually, if we could show a daily chart on this one, that would be helpful.
Yeah, but it does. It's bounced back. Obviously, there's some big swings. When you see it on a weekly chart, but on the daily, it pops up more how it comes in. The volume was stronger today, so that was nice. It's already profitable. I mean, actually, Lululemon is very profitable. This one is actually profitable. We haven't seen a lot of IPOs. That's usually fairly rare to be strong profits as well as decent, a strong revenue growth. Okay, yeah, you see some strong revenue growth often with IPOs, but usually not profitable. So that's positive. And its niche is that it's either non-invasive or lightly invasive.
Right.
And obviously there could be some real payoffs there that it sets itself apart as opposed to other plastic surgery type of companies. So on a daily basis, yeah, it's definitely showing a breaking of that downtrend. Maybe this can move higher. On a dull day, this one really moved higher. I believe Jim Cramer may have said positive things on Mad Money on Friday, but still, real money had to come into this. This wasn't just a couple of folks saying, hey, I love Jim Cramer. Some people put some money into this, so that was positive.
Yeah, so it looks like it closed up 11.5%, so that's not a small move. Granted, now with something like this, it does have very few shares outstanding, a low float. The float is only 9 million shares, so it doesn't take as much to move it, but as you said, it still does require some involvement in there by some big names in order to make it move that much.
Yes.
Okay. Now, a stock that would be very difficult to move by any stretch of the imagination is JPMorgan. This is one of the big bank behemoths, of course, so that requires a lot more. We've got a slew of earnings coming up. We've got JPMorgan, we've got Citi, we've got Wells Fargo, and then a number of brokers as well. So what is it that we're looking for in this round of earnings for the banks? Well,
the earnings aren't necessarily going to be that great. JPMorgan, which tends to be one of the better performers of the banks, it actually was one of the ones that actually broke out for a while. Its earnings and revenue are both supposed to rise by 4%. It just is okay. It did break out about a month ago when Treasury yields were surging. It came back down when yields fell back. It's moving back toward it. A buy point, though, one could look at the high recently from in September as maybe a more appropriate thing because it's a few weeks into maybe a new consolidation, so there could be resistance there. But if you look at the relative strength line, that's really the issue. And on a long-term basis, it just hasn't made really big moves for long periods.
Right.
And JPMorgan is usually one of the better performers.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean it can't outperform in the short run, several weeks, even several months, but it's just difficult because the reasons why bank stocks would rise, there's rising interest rates, the economy is doing well. Well, there's a lot of stocks that are going to do well in that situation. And, so that's just been an issue for bank stocks in general, but we're going to get a lot of them, And JPMorgan, Goldman Sachs, along with United Health and Johnson & Johnson, a lot of Dow stocks coming out tomorrow, so there's going to be some swing in the Dow futures.
Right.
and at the open, if nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so definitely expect that tomorrow. And a lot of the bank stocks were up a little bit today. At least when the market was flat, they did outperform today. So we'll see if that can continue tomorrow and after earnings. But that'll go ahead and do it for us today. A few things to keep in mind. We have another investing strategies at the NASDAQ show dropping. Allie's in New York today, and she'll be posting that later on today or tomorrow morning. And so please do check that out at investors.com/investing strategies. We also have our social media platforms that you're welcome to join us on at any time. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. So please watch us on any of those different platforms or engage with us. And we will go ahead and see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching.